if it wasn't something that was working for the news organizations
Oh,
and web,
mm-hmm.
like people are engaging in the content. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it this way. So
Absolutely.
it's just like reality TV. Like everybody looks at some disgusting reality television show like Dance Moms or something,
Mm-hmm.
where it's just like child abuse on the screen and says, "How is this possible? Why is this on television? Why is this okay?" And it's because people are watching it like crazy.
I didn't mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to start off our Monday show like this, but I was thinking
Well,
about
there's a
even,
shooting, so that's
yeah.
already. I mean, it wasn't going to start positively no matter what. It wasn't going to start on a high note anyway.
And
So
it's just like everywhere I turn, crime is just out of control.
yeah,
People are running amok, and no one is doing anything about it. It's just like the prisoners are running the asylum of our lives.
hopefully people are just now starting to do something about it. I think that people are starting to
Yeah.
get engaged
Yeah.
and making their voices heard. Like we talked with Justin Sparks, Missouri State Representative, last week about schools. That's been another, obviously hot topic and another one that can be very depressing. And how for a very long time, parents just didn't, and myself included, we knew our teachers and we knew the school district and all of that, but we didn't think that we had to monitor the curriculum day to day because we were afraid that our kids were being taught something
Yeah.
that we didn't agree with.
Mm-hmm.
This really wasn't a thing. And then we find out that it was happening, and people have started to get involved and have started to put a stop to it. We saw, like in various school board elections just here in our area, that people have been making their voices heard and putting people in positions to put a stop to some of these things. So I agree with you that it's out of control, and I agree with you that it's not getting any better. But I do have some optimism that there is a way for people to get involved and for people to stand up and what's Nick's show? Stand and fight.
Stand and fight. Stand and fight.
Against these against some of these things. So we have got a lot to talk about. In fact, you mentioned Easter and how much you liked it and how great it was to have a day to like get away and be with your family and all of that. And I was having some of the same thoughts. I went to church yesterday, and I've said many times that I am my church attendance is very, very, very poor. And
Same.
I was sitting there, and I was thinking to myself how much better I always feel when I go to church. I feel great about it when I go. And we've talked about like various surveys that we've seen over the last few years about how much church attendance has declined, and how we've seen people say that like they don't even think that it'll really exist in 100 years or whatever it may be, like it'll be a thing of the past and all of this. And so I was thinking about all of those things and how much of a conversation there is to be had about that. And so we're going to have a little bit of that conversation with Gabe Pfeiffer from The Morning Show, who's usually here on Fridays. Well, I'm making him be on again. He's coming on. He's coming on this afternoon because Gabe is somebody Gabe and I go to church together, and he is very active in the church. He's one of our elders. He's one of the leaders in the church. And so, his faith is something that is very important and central to his life. And so I thought he was the perfect person to talk to about these things, like the danger of losing religion. And a lot of people think that would be a good thing. People have blamed a lot of death and wars and conflict on religions, and there's certainly some truth to that. But and a lot of people think certain things about Christians or other religions that may not be accurate, like what they think or whatever this. So I thought the day after Easter, coming off of that, and a lot of people, this kind of being at the top of mind, would be a perfect day to have a conversation about religion and its decline and how bad that could be and what could be done and what Gabe thinks, what everybody thinks about, if that is going to be a situation that turns around, or what can the church do, all of those type of things. So we're going to talk to Gabe in a little less than an hour from now, just after 3 o'clock. He's going to join us. We're also going to talk today to Mark Lauder. He is, of course, the former strategic communications director for the Trump presidential campaign. He's also the America First Policy Institute's chief communications officer. So he is going to be on with us to talk some of the news of the day and also talk about the 2024 election. We're going to keep an eye, of course, on everything that's happening surrounding this shooting at the bank in Louisville. But as the top of the hour news gave you the most recent report, there's not any new details out. There was 5 people so far to this point have been confirmed dead. They're trying to, apparently the shooter was a former employee of the bank. So, just another tragic, sad, as Katie said, just another tragic day in the news, and we'll continue to keep an eye on it. If there is any new information or any new breaking details, we will let you know as we go through the day. Before we talk to Mark, I wanted to bring this up. Something else that happened today. At this point, I feel like I'm being personally trolled by the president. I feel like I'm being personally trolled.
He's coming after Tony Colombo.
By Joe Biden.
Uh-oh.
We mentioned Mark Lauder
Uh-huh.
and his connection to Donald Trump and running the communications department for Donald Trump's presidential campaign. So he's a guy that has a lot of knowledge and experience when it comes to running for president, when it comes to being a part of a presidential campaign. And I've said over and over, it's clearly, I think everybody knows that it's clearly under my skin that Joe Biden won't make the announcement that he's running for president. What is he like? Yes. Just say it, man. Just say it. And then we have Joe Biden going up in front of reporters and saying, how many times does he have to say it before you believe it? We think he's going to run. No, you can't say that. You can't say the think. You can't
say the thing.
And you can't say how many times does he have to say it when he hasn't said it. He has to say it once. Yeah. Once, Jill, once. That's all he has to say. This morning, the president was on the Today Show, and Al Roker asked him, did you see this?
I did see this, and I totally forgot this happened, but I saw this.
Yes. He was on the Today Show. Al Roker asked him if he intends to run for re-election in 2024, and he said, I plan on running, Al, but we're not prepared to announce that yet.
Oh, my gosh.
When? Why?
When and why?
When and why? When are you going to announce it? Why haven't you?
Why
do you keep saying intend? You are the president.
It's not cute anymore.
It doesn't. You don't have
either.
to. There's what is there to think about?
There's no coyness to this.
Yeah.
It's like we know
you're already the president. You are the president.
Either you're going to.
Are you
going to
do it again, or are you going to run again or not? You keep
cute.
acting like people are crazy,
right?
For asking, but you won't answer.
I do wonder, whenever he does answer, where he will go. Like what? I mean, he'll make his own statement. He'll probably make his own statement. But then I guess the other question is, why do people like Al Roker think they're going to get out of it? Like, it was an Easter.
God bless Al for asking. I'm glad somebody did.
What do you think? Do you think?
He was going to announce after the new year. Then the rumor was he was going to announce right after the State of the Union. Then I heard the other day that they were saying that he might not announce until the fall. Like what?
So is he? This is the other thing. Is he? So he's waiting for a successful moment. We already established that a while ago.
Could be, sure.
Maybe he's also waiting for like Ron DeSantis. Maybe he's waiting for Ron DeSantis.
But what should that have to do with anything?
I don't know. Maybe he's trying to see who are the people that are going to run besides Trump.
He is the president. It's not like if you were thinking about running, you're not the president yet, and you're like, well, who's my competition going to be? Is this a good year for me to try to do this or not? Like, I get that. That's not the case.
And
Doesn't
yeah.
matter who the competition is. He's
Yeah.
the president.
But he's an unpopular president. Does that have anything to do with it?
I don't know. Maybe. He's an old president.
He's old, but he does not have the people in his corner rallying around him saying, we want you to be the president again. I mean, no one is saying that so is that part of the game he's playing? Like, nobody wants me to run again, but I'm kind of caught in this predicament where everybody in my party is thinking I'm going to run again. I don't know.
Politicians have a reason for everything. They do everything is calculated. Announcements, everything. There's people behind the scenes planning this out and telling them why they should or shouldn't do something at a specific time. So that's the part that is the confusing part to me. There is a reason. There is some kind of motivation, explanation, reason for why he hasn't announced yet. But I just can't. But what is it? That's what I want to know. I mean, I have a lot of. We've heard all these different. We've heard all these different theories. Yeah, the other day, like you said, he's waiting for good news. There was one the other day that said, like, oh well, with the Trump indictment, that's the country's distracted, so. He can just keep waiting because like whenever there's something big in the news, it gives him time to wait and gives him cover. Well, he could use that till the end of time. There's always big news. We're always distracted by the news. There's always something happening. So that doesn't make any sense because if you're waiting for a slow news day.
Yeah, you're not going to get one.
That's never going to happen.
You're not going to get one.
So anyway, that's one of the many things that we will talk to Mark Lauder about. Again, he is the Chief Communications Officer with the America First Policy Institute, former director of the former director of the Communications Department for the Trump presidential election. So I'll work on his title, and we'll talk to him in just a moment here on Colombo and Katie on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
You're listening to Colombo and Katie. Follow Tony Colombo on Twitter at Tony Colombo Talk. Larry Connors, USA.
Well, source matters a lot. That would mean the director of National Intel is either lying himself or he's not that intelligent.
Larry Connors.
Or both.
Weeknights at 6 on News Talk STL.
If you need a new vehicle, Weber Chevrolet is the place to go. 3 locations around town, Creve Coeur in Missouri, and then Granite City and Columbia in Illinois. For so many reasons, Weber Chevrolet is the best. Like my family, I've been going to Weber for years and will continue to do so because it's not about just getting you in, selling you a car, getting you out the door, and moving on to the next one at Weber Chevrolet. They are going to take care of you and that vehicle for the entire time that you own it. And there are so many families, so many people that have been buying from Weber for generations because of that customer service and because of the great service departments and everything else that goes into Weber Chevrolet. That's why they've been around for something like 120 years. It's absolutely crazy. You don't have that type of success and longevity if you are not doing something right. The service departments are second to none. It's one of those things, one of those areas that if you don't have expertise, if you don't know, if you're not a mechanic, something goes wrong with your car, that check engine light comes on, you get that pit in your stomach, what am I going to do? How much is this going to cost? When you go to Weber Chevrolet, you have a relationship with the service departments there. You take your cars there. That pit in your stomach is gone because you know that they've got your best interest at heart. You know that you're going to get the truth, and you know that you're going to get taken care of. And again, one of the many things that separates them from the rest. Weber Chevrolet, 3 locations, Creve Coeur, Granite City, and Columbia, Illinois. And you can learn about all of them at weberchevrolet.com.
Have you been floored? Not until you've gone to Michael's Flooring Outlet. They've been a locally owned and operated family business for more than 28 years. You want variety? Michaels has carpet, hardwood, laminate, ceramic tile, luxury vinyl, natural stone, and many other options. Save money and get quality at Michaels. Plus, your installation will be done right the first time when you hire the experts at Michaels. You can shop in store at one of their 3 convenient locations or shop from home. Check out everything that Michaels has to offer at igotfloored.com.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness 101. Wellness 101 is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense, science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on News Talk STL. For more information, visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
St. Louis's place to talk.
Freedom of speech is one of the anchors of our society.
News Talk STL.
Welcome back to Colombo and Katie on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. As I mentioned, joining us again this afternoon is Mark Lotter. He is the former Director of Strategic Communications for the Trump presidential campaign, former Special Assistant to Vice President Mike Pence and President Donald Trump, and he is currently the Chief Communications Officer at America First Policy Institute. It's always great to have him on the show. Mark, really appreciate your time as always. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. Lots to talk about. As usual, I am going to I'm going to have you switch hats a little bit later on in the interview and go back to your life running presidential campaigns. And I want to have some questions that will delve into your expertise in those areas. But before we get there, I was just ranting about President Biden a minute ago, and so the audience knows where I'm going with that, and we'll get there. But first, wanted to talk about the latest happening at the America First Policy Institute. There is a, presidential election year, or not year yet, but presidential election season or not. As another thing we were talking about in that last segment. People are waking up. They're making their voices heard in areas across the country, whether it be crime, education, the border, so many other things. And I know that those are a lot of the things that America First Policy Institute is also focused on. So what's the latest and what's the projects that you guys are working on as we speak?
Well, there's so many, too many to mention.
Sure.
But that's really one of the exciting things is because obviously, anything that puts America first is not happening in Washington, D.C. because we only control 1/2 of 1/3 of government from a legislative standpoint. But the work that's going on in the states is really remarkable. And you can look at it up and down the line, whether it's empowering parents to question what's being taught to their kids in public schools, whether it's expanding school choice, whether it's securing the elections, making sure that something as simple as a voter ID is required to cast your ballot, or that we're going to verify your signature. There's so many basic things out there that we are able to do in the states, and having a lot of success with it. Unfortunately, sadly, we still have to continue to go through this morass of incompetence at the federal level until hopefully we can get control of the Senate and eventually the White House.
What have been your results or at least your feeling in specifically the reach to get parents more engaged in their kids' education? This is one of the things that Katie and I were just talking about a moment ago. Are you feeling like there is some momentum that parents across the country are getting more engaged and they're standing up and they're realizing what's happening in these schools and they're making their voices heard?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Going back and putting my political hat or historian hat on,
yes,
which I'm not a historian, but, I go back into the 90s and remember when it was the minivan moms that everyone was fighting over to get their vote. And then it was the soccer moms back in the George W. Bush years. They were the Walmart moms, the NASCAR crowd. Now it's the angry moms because there are a lot of moms out there that are angry. when they found out what's being taught to their kids, when they find out that these teachers and the teachers' unions primarily are trying to go back behind their back, allowing kids to change their gender identification or being taught to go to drag shows in kindergarten and all this other craziness that we are seeing. And then it's being shielded from parents. Parents are not even being allowed to be told, or teachers and their union thugs are exchanging memos on how to hide this from people's parents. I mean, that angers people. And then when they want to know, it's like, but, they don't learn any of the basics. And so as we started to see more and more parents in the last couple of years, especially post-COVID, when they found out what was actually going on during the pandemic, they started standing up.
Mm-hmm.
And it cost Democrats the governor's seat in Virginia, which is not a red state anymore.
Right,
it's a
right.
pretty purple-blue state. When you look at the number, in Florida, they changed control of like a half a dozen or so school boards from the traditional, union-appointed candidates to conservative, America First, pro-parent candidates. It's been night and day, and I think we're starting to see that more and more in other states, that parents are not going to be ignored any longer.
Yeah, we had an election here in our area last Tuesday. Was an election day, and it was many of the races were school board elections across the area, and there was a lot of conservative, if for lack of a better term, but that sort of more engaged parent that's going to take a stand against these progressive ideologies that have been put in place. There was a lot of success across our area for those type of candidates. There was also some that lost, that just seemed absolutely baffling. So it's not like, it's certainly not, the fight is nowhere near over, but it was a pretty a heartening day, at least for most of the.
Well, one of the things on our agenda for states to do to put parents first is to move school board elections into the congressional year, because right now what they do is they hide them in the off years.
Oh yeah.
When there's very low turnout, and then the education liberal forces activate their radical bases to go out there and flood when most conservatives are more worried about doing something else and having a life. So by moving it into the main elections, you're going to have much more involvement. You'll have people paying attention, and there's a better chance that parents can actually have their voices heard.
Mark, Fox News came out with a poll not long ago, I think last week, saying President Biden's near record low approval among key groups. So his approval rating is absolutely plummeted. We know that it wasn't good to begin with. But you made a tweet not long ago also saying Biden is handcuffing the Democrat Party with horrible poll numbers. Can you explain that tweet a little bit?
Yeah, so you're the one who follows my Twitter feed.
Oh, yes. It's me, Mark.
It's you. So basically, I was on Fox News, and Harris Faulkner had asked me because the president keeps delaying his announcement for his reelection. It's now apparently going to be in July or something. And what I said is that he's handcuffing the party because he's got such horrible poll numbers in all of these key demographics and on all of the major issues. On every major issue, he is underwater except for one, his handling of COVID. And, that's not really top of mind to anybody right now, nor should it be. But by him delaying this, his poll numbers are going to continue to get worse because gas prices are starting to go back up because he's killed American energy. And inflation is not going to get any better. Unemployment is going to start going up because the Fed keeps having to raise interest rates. So people are going to start losing their jobs. By the time we get around to the summertime, he is delayed so far that no other Democrat is going to be able to raise the $2 billion and build the staff and the infrastructure that you would need to, A, defeat him, or B, win in the general election. So basically, by continuing to punt this decision down the road, he is forcing Democrats to settle for him because he will be the only game in town.
Okay, so let's do this right now, because this is one of the things that made me this particular issue, for whatever reason, has just gotten under my skin. The way that the president has handled this, the way it was going to be, well, he'll announce after the new year. Oh, he's going to announce after the State of the Union. Oh, he's going to announce, at the beginning of the spring. Now, like you said, now we're hearing it could be late summer or even fall before he announces, and all the while saying, like Jill Biden, telling reporters, like, how many times does he have to say it before you believe that he's going to run? run. Well, look, he has to say it once. So don't gaslight us. He has to say it. He has to say it once. It happened this morning. I'm sure you saw. He was on the Today Show. Al Roker asked him if he was going to run. He said, "I intend to, but we're not prepared to make that announcement yet." So again, we're talking to Mark Lauder. He's the Chief Communications Officer with the America First Policy Institute, but he's also the former Director of Strategic Communications for Trump's 2020 presidential campaign. So perfect person to talk about if we're talking about a presidential campaign. I mentioned in the first segment, there's a reason. There's always a reason in politics for the timing of everything, announcements, policy, whatever it may be. So there's got to be some reason. There's got to be something going on behind the scenes that keeps making the president delay this announcement. What could it be? Why the wait? What's the confusion around a sitting president just telling the country that he's going to run again?
Well, so first and foremost, once he declares that he's running, then he's going to have to start raising money and spending it. Because even and I'll go back to my time, obviously, on the Trump campaign, the taxpayer doesn't pay for Air Force One to go to a campaign event. The campaign has to reimburse the federal government. Now, there are certain parts of it that are paid for by the government. I mean, he's going to have Secret Service protection whether he goes to Dairy Queen or a campaign rally. But and we know how Joe Biden likes his ice cream. But so the taxpayers are going to foot the bill for the military part of it, for the Secret Service part of it, but the actual flight time and all the campaign staff that are going to be there, then the campaign has to pay for that. So basically what he is doing is he is going to run around the country and claim all of his false claims about how good the economy is doing and what a great president he is, why he should be on Mount Rushmore. He's doing that right now on the taxpayer's dime as an official visit. Once he becomes a candidate, then all of those, I mean, he's still going to do a lot of that official stuff, but all of the campaign stuff, he's got to pay for.
So, Mark, on the flip side of this, when we're talking about President Trump, he has this extended lead that came out from the New York Post last week against Ron DeSantis with a 26% point rating and a percentage point lead. And I guess whenever we're looking at Trump compared to Biden, Trump is exponentially beating Biden in the polls right now. Did the indictment have a part to play with his high approval ratings?
Well, absolutely. I mean, there is no question that the indictment, I think solidified the base. And I mean, even I think a lot of people who had maybe soured on the former president, now they loved his policies. They loved the results. They didn't necessarily like him or the way he tweeted things or said things or attacked people. And maybe they just kind of, okay, he's out of office, I'm over it. But what I think it's done is that it's come back to show them, here we go again. Every day they wake up and they attack this man. They attack him. And they're attacking all of us, whether it's sending the FBI and DOJ to investigate parents that had questions about school boards and considering them domestic terrorists, or the the Obama administration using the IRS to investigate conservative groups to see if they could be non-for-profit. What we see going on in New York, you see Hillary walking and Trump being charged with a felony. I mean, you can go time and time again. Well, a lot of people, I mean, remember, I think it was right down there in your neck of the woods, the family that was charged for just standing outside holding a gun as the BLM protest walked by.
They have a show on this radio station, Mark, that is right in our Mark McCloskey. Mark McCloskey is on our station every Sunday night.
So this kind of situation can happen where the government can be turned against you for just trying to protect your home against the radical woke left. And so I think what they're seeing is here he is, the personification of it, and it's bringing a lot of that soft support back to him because, somebody asked me the other day, if there were to have been a mugshot, what would it represent? I said, it'd represent every American. It might be his face, but everybody could look at that picture and see their own picture because you could be next.
Who would get more positive reaction from that mugshot? It being in a President Biden campaign commercial or President Trump campaign commercial? Whose does that? Whose campaign is this better for? in the long run? I know it's bad. Look, it's
yeah.
illegal and bad and all of those things, but just strictly from campaign standpoint, what do you think?
I mean, at some point, I think actually the American people are over it on both sides.
Yeah.
I mean, they would show the Trump picture, and we're going to show the Biden or the Hunter picture in the tub with, or whatever. And I just think the American people are like, you know what? I've been there. I've done it. I know the story. Well, now they know the Hunter story. They didn't get to know the Hunter story before 2020, but they do now. And so this will have all played itself out. I just think at some point, if you really want to win, and I would say the same thing, obviously, to the president, to the former president, and I do say the same thing. It's like, talk about getting gas prices back down, talk about getting inflation down, secure the border, end the war in Ukraine, and let's get back to putting America first, and you win. That's what the American people want.
Yeah. Talking to Mark Lauder. One more question before we let you go. Mark, of course, is with the America First Policy Institute. And one of the things that we have seen just get out of control in just about every area. We've talked about federal overreach, government overreach, but I mean, it really does reach into almost every topic you're talking about. Schools, crime, all of it. I feel like there's a day coming where we are going to see a true showdown between the states and the federal government. Like, for example, here in Missouri, we passed the SAPA bill, the Second Amendment Protection Act, literally passed that, as other states have in these types of areas, to try to protect against any future actions taken by the federal government. And I just feel like this is going to come to a head at some point, and it's going to be debated out. It's going to have to figure out who ultimately has the say, the states or the federal government. Do you see that day coming as well, and do you have an opinion on how it all ends up?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. And the problem is that it's going to get a little dicey if it's a federal law. If it's a law that is enacted by Congress and signed by the president, federal preemption is going to win that each and every time. However, what they're doing is, because they can't get it done, is they're trying to go through the agencies. And so it's going to be the ATF, it's going to be the FDA, it's going to be all of these unelected liberal swamp creature bureaucrats that are all my neighbors here in D.C., and they're passing regulations. And so what trumps? Is it a state law enacted by your legislature, signed by your governor, or overridden, however that works? Or is it a regulation by some pinhead pencil pusher in some government cube who decided that they're going to pass a regulation or a rule and publish it? And so which one has more authority? And in that case, I think it should be the state.
Yeah. And I think we are heading down the path to that being something that's going to be hashed out at a very high level on many of these issues across the board. Mark, really appreciate your time as always. Mark Lauder with the America First Policy Institute. If people want more information about America First, how can they get that information and learn about all the things that you guys are working on?
Well, join Katie and follow me on Twitter. It's at Mark with a C _Lauder, LOTTER, or go to AmericaFirstPolicy.com.
Really appreciate it, Mark. As always, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk to you again soon.
You too.
All right. That is Mark Lauder with the America First Policy Institute. Great stuff from him, as always. All right. I have expressed some unpopular opinions about the TikTok situation. I have, a lot of people are saying it's got to go. And look, I don't like TikTok. I think it's bad. I think it's bad for kids. I think it does damage to your attention span. But I just have talked about things about, the precedent that it sets to eliminate something like that. And people, I've gotten some pushback. Well, there's a new story out today that is another layer to this, and things just keep getting dumber.
No surprise.
And the line keeps being blurred on how dangerous is TikTok. Is it this terrible thing that's a detriment to the safety of every American? Or is it something that's fun and we all should be a part of, including the President of the United States? I'll tell you that story in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Colombo and Katie on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
You're listening to Colombo and Katie, St. Louis's new choice for conservative talk.
I think they're trying to attack the American people.
Live and local.
Gabe, Mike, Ken, you guys are my morning cup of mental coffee. I love the show. Definitely a convert from the old one.
This is News Talk STL.
So this week we are going through our project at our home with the Gutter Pros, and this is something that we have been trying to get accomplished ever since we bought our new house about a year ago. We knew the gutters were an issue. We knew they were going to have to be addressed. But, you know, you want to make sure that you are working with the right team, the right people that you trust to get the job done. And, you know, we had to find that team, and we did. Gutter Pros. Gutter Pros is your all-in-one gutter service team. They bring years of experience and quality that's affordable right to your doorstep. Dave Sylvester and his team there at Gutter Pros have been awesome for us. We've been working with them, and if you are having any issues with your gutters, I highly recommend that you call the Gutter Pros as well. Whether it be leaf protection, gutter repair, new gutter installation, they have you covered across the board. They also offer free estimates. So if you do have a project in mind, or, you know, a worry, and you just want somebody to come out and take a look, and you don't want to be bound to any commitment or anything like that, call Gutter Pros and take advantage of the free estimate. With Gutter Pros, water goes where we tell it, and you can reach them now at gutterpros.com. That's gutterpros.com.
Do you live in St. Charles County? Then you can get Mid-Rivers News Magazine delivered free to your home just by asking for it. Mid-Rivers News Magazine is the only print source for the political, school, business, and sports news happening in your hometown. Simply visit midriversnewsmagazine.com/subscribe to get a copy delivered to your mailbox. Or you can pick up a free copy at all area Deerbergs and Schnuck stores. Mid-Rivers News Magazine. Anybody who wants it gets it. Anybody who gets it wants it. Subscribe for free today.
Report cards are a good way to show how well your kids are doing in class and where they might need improvement. We at the Show Me Institute believe schools should get grades too, so parents can see how their child's school compares to others. That's why we came up with the Missouri School Rankings Project. Click on the website moschoolrankings.org and it's all there. Rankings and letter grades for all the schools in Missouri. The rankings are based on categories such as student performance in English language arts and math, ACT scores, and graduation rates. Then we take the rankings and come up with a grade point average, just like your child has. Each school and district has a grade, and the website is easy to use. And now we've added spending data for every district, so parents, taxpayers, and policymakers can see where the money is going. Don't you want to know how your child's school stacks up? Learn more at showmeinstitute.org. The Show Me Minute has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
This hour of Colombo and Katie brought to you by Gutter Pros. Water goes where we tell it. Call 314-656-7195 or visit them at gutterpros.com.
Welcome back to Colombo and Katie on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Quick reminder, there are so many ways that you can take News Talk STL with you everywhere you go. Of course, we stream the show live every day. You can listen to us on our website, newstalkstl.com. You can just download our app, which I highly recommend because that's the easiest way to just have the station everywhere that you go. We also, of course, stream the show, the video stream of the show live every day. You can subscribe to the Colombo and Katie YouTube channel. You can also subscribe to the News Talk STL Rumble page or Facebook page. And every day, all of our shows here are live on video. So you can watch us as well as listen to us in all of those places. And, of course, we also have our weekly newsletter that Katie puts together each and every week. And you can do a better job of explaining that and why and how people can make sure they're getting that every week.
Well, why is just because you love our station and you love us. So that's the real reason why. But go to newstalkstl.com. You're going to be able to find our newsletter there. All we need is your name and your email address. Boom, you are signed up. We send one email a week, so we are not bombarding you whatsoever. newstalkstl.com to sign up for our newsletter. We would love for you to be a part of it. It's really fun. It's just simple things, stories we've put together, highlights from the week, cartoons, podcasts, interviews. So just a hodgepodge of highlights that haven't happened during the week.
Absolutely. So make sure you are subscribed to the newsletter and following us on all your favorite social media platforms. And speaking of social media, the TikTok situation, of course, has been hot and heavy. There's been a lot of talk about the dangers of TikTok. And then there's a report today from Axios that says that the Biden White House is working on a project to, quote, tout his record on social media and reach young people. So I don't know if this is true or not, but according to this article, I guess Joe Biden and the administration are working on some big project and celebration and announcement about how he has had more social media interaction, involvement than any other president in history.
More than Trump?
The details
Yeah,
the details are
Harry.
just coming out
Yeah,
about
yeah,
but according to Axios, this is what they're working on. It doesn't say exactly how he's going to make that announcement. But yes, that it's going to be a whole thing about just celebrating and touting how great President Biden is using social media and reaching young people and being the most transparent and communicative president in history, right? Okay, that's what this article in Axios is about. According to the report, the administration is teaming up with social media influencers.
Of course.
And as part of this, the president is considering giving the influencers their own private briefing at the White House. So bringing these social media influencers to the White House to have a personal briefing
This makes so much
with
sense.
the president where they are able to tell him the things he's doing right and the things he's doing wrong and what else, how to better use these social media platforms. The influencers are also being given access to the president while he's traveling, according to the report. And it's hundreds of influencers. It's not like a dozen that I can just name. It's like there's hundreds of influencers involved in this. And many, 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 many of them are on TikTok. And exclusively on TikTok.
This makes
so they are
so
only
much sense.
TikTokers.
This makes sense to me.
So, it doesn't make any sense to me because TikTok is bad. TikTok can't be on any federal phones because the Chinese are spy because it's owned. It's a spying apparatus being used by the Chinese government. So why are we going to use hundreds of TikTok influencers for this White House
Tony, you know
project?
why. You know why. And that is because the media, the traditional media, has turned against Biden. So now they are finding a new way. And you are correct. TikTok is big old bad. You're not supposed to be having it on your phones. But
we're going to have TikTokers in the briefing room.
Yes, we will, because the briefing
make any
room,
sense.
because the press corps has turned on Biden. Because the briefing room has turned on Biden and Jean-Pierre. They thought from the jump that they were going to have the media in their pocket. And I'm not saying that they don't have 70% of the media. I'm not saying that they don't have a shoe-in. They don't have a leg up, specifically compared to Trump, when it comes to press. But much more pushback is happening, as we have heard from Christian Daytalk in that press room. He is cultivating with the White House administration, he is cultivating new reporters, new journalists that, I hate to be this way, are stupid enough to buy in that he's being a good president. That's going to be the new press corps, people. It's the social media TikTokers and the influencers, because they're not coming for us. They're coming for the Gen Zers.
Are we?
That's who they're coming for.
Are we, and I mean like we as American voters, as broadly as possible, are we so stupid that we don't see that he gets away with it, that we don't see the hypocrisy here, the conflict of interest here? The president cannot stand in front of the American people and say that TikTok is a Chinese spy tool that needs to be eliminated, and because of all the dangers it brings to national security, and then have an exclusive press briefing and allow special access to the president for TikTokers.
It is a great example.
Is it going to work?
I believe that we are not stupid enough to fall for it. And I don't mean that, but we were all young and dumb once. We were all young and dumb once. We were 19, 20, 21-year-old. Those are the big people, influencers using TikTok, and they are the people that are speaking to the younger generation. The younger generation don't give a rip that Biden once said, this is a dangerous platform. We shouldn't be doing it, and is now using it. But we do. We get the hypocrisy in it.
And how does a TikToker, who the president is trying to put out of business, say, yeah,
come on, Joe,
I'd love to be your buddy and come hang out.
We'll go take a tour of the White House together.
The whole thing is just dumb on the next level.
It is.
That this is, I mean, he's doing TikToks,
but
at the White House, and then John Kirby says, well, yeah, but it wasn't on a federal device. But
it's the loophole.
You don't get to say
it's a loophole.
that TikTok is threatening national security, and then go on TikTok.
Have the Jonas Brothers come and do a TikTok with you, which is what happened.
Exactly.
I think he's building a new army, Tony, a new army of people that he would, so-called journalists, as Dan Bongino would say.
Well, if that works, then we are dumber than I ever thought we were. As we talked about earlier, coming off the heels of Easter, there's been a lot of reports recently about how much the country has gone away from religion. Church attendance and the importance of faith has fallen off dramatically over the last few years. We're going to have our friend Gabe Pfeiffer from The Morning Show, who is very active in the church, come on and talk about that and the dangers of it in the future and what can be done, if anything. And we'll do that here in just a moment on Colombo and Katie on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Springtime in St. Louis, and if you hate to paint, do what your neighbor Mr. Rob Miller from Harvesttown Auto Body in St. Peters did. He called Rhino Shield. Rob, what was the thought process for going with Rhino Shield as a business owner?
My family's business is over 10,000 square feet, and it did not have the curb appeal I wanted.
Rob, tell everyone how the experience was with Rhino Shield from start to finish.
The process that I liked was when you came out, you gave me all of these options that would fit my building. Our building was really faded. I don't want to have to paint my building again. 25 years is a long time to not have to worry about the outside maintenance of your building as far as paint. That's a no-brainer. That's why Rhino Shield worked for me.
Are your neighbors jealous?
I would be if I was them.
Thanks, Rob. Now it's time to call 877-25-RHINO. 877-25-RHINO or 877-25rhino.com. Genius.
No paint, don't Rhino. Go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
News Talk STL is proud to have Doug Voss of Safe Money Radio as part of our lineup each week. Doug has been a staple on St. Louis radio for many years as one of the leading financial experts in the area. Doug and Safe Money Radio is on 3 times every weekend, but in case you miss anything, you can check it all out at DougVossSafeMoneyRadio.com or call 844-676-SAFE. That's 844-676-7233. Doug Voss is a registered representative. Securities offered through DHL Securities, LLLP. Member FINRA and SIPC.
Talk radio made in St. Louis.
Very excited for what you guys are doing for the St. Louis community.
For St. Louis.
Relevant local talk.
Saying what we are thinking.
This is News Talk STL.
You guys are awesome. I love you. And it's a tremendous honor to be on the station.
News, analysis, and opinion.
Thanks for covering the local angle.
Come on, people. This is America.
We better open our eyes.
Really local, really good.
News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and newstalkstl.com. KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefontaine, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Shooting at a bank building in downtown Louisville, the suspected shooter also dead, a 23-year-old male who was an employee of the bank. Police answered that shooting call in 3 minutes. Dr. Jason Smith, Louisville Chief Medical Officer, had nothing but praise for the officers.
I want to say thank you to our police officers and our EMS services. I have no doubt in my mind that they saved lives today. I think they, as many in the healthcare industry, have been through a difficult time recently, but they have stood up and stand up for Louisville and the people of Louisville constantly. And they have our thanks from U of L Health.
3 of the victims still fighting for their lives. Also at townhall.com. In an interview taped Saturday from Taiwan, Texas Congressman Mike McCall, who chairs the House Foreign Affairs Committee, says China was conducting extra flights and military drills around Taipei during a visit by the U.S. congressional delegation.
This is an intimidation tactic that they're known for. The size of this one is quite large, one of the largest ones we've seen. But it's not going to intimidate us.
McCall was on NBC's Meet the Press. The Justice Department is appealing a Texas court ruling that would halt approval of the most commonly used method of abortion in the U.S. The request to the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals was filed after conflicting court rulings over the legality of the abortion medication mifepristone put in doubt access to the drug that has been widely available now for more than 20 years. The court ruling was issued Friday but would not take effect for 7 days. A mixed close on Wall Street. The Dow had 77 points, but the Nasdaq lost 3. More at townhall.com.
Relief Factor, pain relief that's natural, pain relief that works, and pain relief that attacks the source of the pain. That's the experience of tens of thousands of Americans who are taking Relief Factor right now. See their incredible video endorsements at relieffactor.com and then order your 3-week quick starter pack for just $19.95. That's less than $1 a day. Find out if it can work for you like it works for me by ordering your 3-week quick starter pack today. Relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Be the next success story.
Execution's 11 p.m., but he's trying to convince us he's gone insane.
Therefore incapable of being executed.
On April 14th.
Edward?
I'm not Edward. I'm a demon.
In the vein of C.S. Lewis's Screwtape Letters.
I think it's time we tell you what it is that we'd like you to do. Comes Nefarious. Rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parent. In theaters April 14th.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. Some mild days ahead, good days to get some yard work done or do anything outdoors, really. Lots of sunshine and mild afternoon temperatures. Now, it starts off a tad cool, but this is still above normal. Tuesday morning's low 52, but then an afternoon high of 78. Mostly sunny skies, winds of about 5 to 10 miles an hour out of the southwest. Wednesday, 55 for the low, 79 for the high, and more sunshine. That's the latest first alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Rodney and Jen Wallner and the entire Wallner home selling team at Berkshire Hathaway. Call them today at 314-810-SOLD. 314-810-SOLD.
And welcome back to Colombo Katie on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Talking about social media platforms and all of those things. Would remind you that you can follow me on Twitter at Tony Colombo Talk. You can follow Katie on Twitter at KFitzTalks. She's got an S on the end of talks. I ran out of characters, so I had to stop at talk. Tony Colombo Talk.
Last name of yours really just...
So make sure you're following the both of us, and also follow the both of us by subscribing to our podcast. The Colombo and Katie Show podcast is available on just about every podcast platform. So whichever one you prefer, we will be there. And we put out everyday's show as a podcast shortly after we get off the air. I almost said get out of the air.
That too. Get out of the air. Get out.
Get off the air. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss anything that ever happens here on the show. Speaking of my Twitter, you would have seen yesterday I retweeted from the News Talk STL Twitter feed. Another one, make sure you're following the station on Twitter as well. I retweeted a picture from church yesterday. I went to church. That's part of the breaking news. And
yes.
our good friend Gabe Pfeiffer from the Mike Ferguson in the Morning Show, he and I go to church together. He goes to church. I occasionally am there. I don't want to make it sound like we are equal in our church attendance. And Gabe was looking like, Katie, $1 million.
Fly.
So
fly.
Clean, fresh. What
Doing
did Mike
the
say?
thing.
He had some drip.
Yeah, drip.
Yeah. That's what the kids are saying these days.
Yes, and Gabe Pfeiffer joins us on the line right now, putting in a little overtime on a Monday afternoon because me being in church 2 weeks in a row, I'd like to just state for the record, had me thinking. And Gabe, you and I talked about this off the air, actually at church the other day, and I told you that I've been thinking about just overall faith, religion in America. We've talked about recent, over the last couple of years, we've read study after study and poll results that show that church attendance across the country is down. It's declining rapidly. People's faith is not nearly as important in their lives as it once was, and all of the social impacts that could come along with this. So on the day after Easter, where and just yesterday in our church, somebody mentioned about how good it was to see so many people in attendance, and made the comment that we haven't seen this many people in church in a long time, and it's nice to see so many people here. It was meant to be a positive, but when you think about it, that's a sad statement that it takes Christmas or Easter for people to go to church. So I don't know. Am I overdoing it? I feel like this is a big deal that nobody talks about that could have a lot of social impact if truly faith and religion fade from people's lives. What do you think?
I don't think you're overstating it at all. I mean, honestly, when I look at all of the social battles, we call it the culture war that we're fighting these days, I actually see pretty much just a physical manifestation of a spiritual war. There's the constant decline, that continual decline that you see in the religiosity, particularly the Christian religiosity of Americans, is right in line with the increase in a lot of the devices and social divisions and social breakdowns that you've been seeing. And I don't think that's coincidental.
So go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say. So a lot of people will make the argument that religion is the biggest reason for war in the history of humanity. More people have lost their lives because of religion, and it creates division. And there's certainly there's truth to those statements, and just like anything else, people have perverted their religious beliefs for terrible things. But I'll let you do it. What is your when somebody makes that argument, what is your response?
Well, whenever I actually look at the reasons behind the various wars that we've seen throughout the centuries, particularly the ones in the 20th century, which were the deadliest and most prolific, and encompass way more than simply soldiers on a battlefield. Those like all wars were actually over territory, power, and control. And those are universal things that go beyond religiosity. Now, religions have been leveraged, certainly, in those instances, but I think in the absence of any particular religion or the absence of Christianity, those wars would have happened anyway, because the people who pull the strings for war still want power, control, and territory. So, I think people say, they want to ascribe war to religion, but war is a human thing, a universally human institution. So, regardless of the not even the reasoning behind the starting of the war, but the things that were leveraged for war, religion is just one among many.
Gabe, I started off Colombo and Katie today talking to Tony about how hard it's been for me to look at the news today, specifically right after Easter, and just how heavy my heart feels today because there's just so much chaos and madness happening in our world. What is the role of the internet and social media? What role do those two items play in people kind of neglecting religion, worshiping something like social media instead of worshiping something else like a higher power?
Yeah, I think social media is less so a catalyst for these changes as much as it's just been sort of a little extra fuel to that fire, because what social media has allowed us to do is to focus more on the one that we think should be in charge, the one we think should be God, and that's ourselves. That's ultimately what, at least in the Christian religion, that's ultimately the primary sin, is that God is supposed to be the one who sits on the throne of your life as an individual, but because we are selfish and self-important, we kick him off of that throne, we put ourselves up there, and then all kinds of chaos ensues. Because ultimately we realize that we're insufficient as our own kings and queens, and we take that out on the rest of the world.
So I have one of these polls right here. This was a poll conducted by the Wall Street Journal, and it actually came out a couple of weeks ago. And I grabbed it, and I've had it with my show prep stuff ever since, because this is, like I said, it's been on my mind, and I knew there would be a time very soon where we'd be having this conversation. And I think it's pretty. I think it tells the story of exactly where we're at. The Wall Street Journal conducted a poll where they asked people across the country, United States citizens, about the importance of traditional, what they called, how did they word it? Traditional American values. They asked about the importance of patriotism, having children, and religious faith. And the poll found that just 39% of Americans said that their religious faith is very important to them. The Wall Street Journal has been doing this poll regularly since 1998. And when they started doing this poll in 1998, that number was 62%. So in 1998, 62% of Americans said that their religion and their faith was very important to them. And now that number is just 39%. What is there any reason to believe that number is not going to continue to get lower, Gabe?
My hope is that we're gonna reach rock bottom soon. What I'm hoping is that we'll hit that point of not revelation necessarily, but revival in America, because we've seen in very important periods in American history, there's always actually been a Christian revival just before something major happened. There was one just before the Revolutionary War, one just before the Civil War, and one just before World War II, I believe, or World War I. And these were significant in that they kind of reminded everybody where they needed to be, and it was just in time for us to be able to meet the challenges of a crisis for the nation. So my hope is that there's going to be a revival, but at the same time, I'm cautiously optimistic about that, because that would also mean God's preparing us for another national upheaval. So there's always a little bit of liver oil with our sweet sweet honey there.
Well, we have.
Go
ahead. Oh, I was
going to say the other thing. Sorry.
No,
the other
go.
thing that I think that poll says, though, and we need to point this out as well, is that there's been an increasing value placed on money. While all the other American values have been going down, between religiosity, patriotism, and even family life, even having children and things like that, what's been increasing, like pretty much the one thing, has been a value of money. And I think there's this book that I try to read often that says something about the love of money, and I'm just going to leave it right there.
Yeah. So I'm not usually very optimistic about humanity and people reversing a trend like this. Usually once Pandora's box is open, it's just things are only going to get worse. However, there have been some recent examples, one that we talked about just today and we've talked about many times recently. For example, the situation with education across the country. And parents that are getting more engaged in sort of turning things around, speaking out against things that have been happening in schools and making their voices heard to sort of get things back on track. So I think that you can make the argument that there is that it's possible that this does get turned around. But have you seen anything? Do you feel any motivation or any momentum or anything like that happening right now in the religious community and with the church, or is that something that needs to get started and does not have that momentum yet?
Well, one of the things that has been very heartening is that while there have been, the numbers of young people who've come through the church doors and have really kind of dedicated them to the service has been few and far between. Those who have are very, very strong. Just the young man that you mentioned who said during his address that he was, so happy to see so many new faces. He's one of the examples of that. He's in his early 20s, and he's a very transparent individual, and he exemplifies a lot of the new version, I guess, of Christianity that we're hoping to see out of young people, where they're very, very willing to be authentic. They actually treat church like family, as opposed to a museum for saintly people. And they come with all of their issues and their baggage, and they leave it at the altar, and they try to live their lives as best as they can under the guidance of biblical values. So that's the type of stuff that gives me hope.
I am going to make Gabe this political for just 1 second, and that is to say that my generation, millennials, I feel like we had a lull when it came to religion. There was a lot of people that I knew growing up that had religion in their life, and then as they became adult decided this is not what they wanted to do anymore, and they kind of broke free of whatever they were tied to, whether it be Catholicism or Christianity. And that happened a lot in my generation, millennials. But I do see something, Gabe, in Gen Zers. And why I bring this to the political realm is that I think you and I and Tony have all talked about how abortion has played a huge role in Gen Zers' lives, and we're seeing a lot of protests happen that are pro-life protests from young individuals realizing what abortion actually is, and they're more leaning towards the pro-life spectrum. Do those political elements, are they what are swaying the younger generation to find themselves going back to church or find themselves worshiping and praying because of these political things that they're identifying with?
I think there is something to that because, when one of the things that I've noticed about the younger generations is that they're very, very obsessed with truth. Now, they have horrible ideas about what truth means and how it's supposed to be applied and all of those things, but they seem, at least on some level, and in some ways genuinely interested in trying to understand reality. And they feel as though they've been lied to so often that they're very just kind of distrustful of authority figures telling them what is. But once the truly interested kind of get engaged and they actually go on that search and they find it, once they kind of get it in their brains, oh my gosh, this is a human being in the womb. Obviously, and then of course, then they become extremely staunchly and more powerfully than we've seen in a lot of previous generations. So it's that type of thing that gives me hope. I see just some of that starting to happen as it pertains to the gender ideology as well, especially with all these trans things. If you put a lady in a locker room and tell her you have to change in front of this fully intact man, naked man standing there staring at you, suddenly, the gender ideology her feminist professor has been telling her about doesn't sound as true. So I'm hoping those things kind of wake people up, and as they go searching for truth, they find the truth that I believe is in the Bible.
Talking to Gabe Pfeiffer, of course, from our morning show, who is among other things, like rocket scientist and radio show host, is also an elder and a church leader, and so that is why Gabe is the perfect person to be talking to about this. And another common sort of argument that you will hear, a common statement that you will hear, is that all that matters is that you're a good person. All that matters is that you, aren't a criminal and you're a good person and you live your life that way, and therefore you don't need God. You don't need a religion or a faith to be the reason for being a good person. What's your response to that thought process, that statement? Why is somebody who is, quote, just a good person, why is God also important for that to be in that person's life?
Oddly enough, it's my scientific training that led me to question the idea of all of that. because the thing is, in science, particularly in math and physics and the like, we deal in absolutes. When we're talking, 1 + 1 is 2. It's kind of an absolute thing. Yes, scientists out there are ways in which 1 + 1 cannot equal 2, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about absolute 1 and absolute 1 added together making 2. So, and you want to be precise. Precision is also a major aspect of life when it comes to dealing in the sciences. So the thing is, I think morality, there's a science to morality as well. It's one thing to say, for instance, that I have a big dog. Well, what does that mean? What does big mean? I have a big dog in comparison to my cat, but, if you compare my dog to, let's say, a Great Dane, it's not so big. So the thing is, when we say good, we're really talking about big and little. It's in comparison to other things. And everybody wants to say, well, I'm not as bad as. That's what they mean by good. I'm not as bad as that murderer. But, pardon me. Mm-hmm. I think there's an absolute measure of good and evil. And I think that measure is Christ. So Jesus is the measure for what it means to be good. And what the Bible says is none of us are good. None of us reach that level. And the beauty of the gospel is that Jesus paid the penalty for not being good to give us a path to be with him. So that's kind of how I look at that whole thing. So it isn't good enough to be a good person. You just have to be on the side of the good person.
Well, this is not the last time we are going to have this conversation, because there are so many layers to this, and again, I just think that so many things that could be discussed, clarified around religion and in the country. And I think it has such an important social impact that, it's something that should be talked about and is not in any regular way out there. So this is not the last time that you're off the hook for now, but not for long. I want to be able to have this. I definitely want to have this conversation again in the very, very near future. Gabe Pfeiffer, thank you so much for a little extra time this afternoon, and we'll be listening tomorrow morning, as always. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Maybe we'll make a regular God Talk segment.
Yeah,
so we'll be in discussions. We'll talk about it in the back office.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I would be
All
there
right,
for
guys.
that. Absolutely. Gabe, thank you so much.
Thank you, Gabe.
Gabe Pfeiffer.
Heavy.
Has a YouTube channel. He's a rocket scientist, literally. Co-host of the morning show. Church elder. This guy, he's a musician.
Mm-hmm. What don't he do?
He has the freshest suit I've ever seen.
I'm telling you.
That he was wearing at church yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, I feel inferior.
Don't forget to see that photo of Tony and of Gabe side by side on Facebook
That's
or on
right.
Twitter.
Yeah, follow.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, go to the News Talk STL Twitter channel. Go to the Facebook page, and you will see the way that I dressed for Easter service and the way that Gabe dressed for Easter service, and there's quite a bit of difference between the two. Mike Ferguson, the morning show, of course, every day starting at 5:30 a.m. here on News Talk STL, and you can always hear Gabe with Mike and Stell there. All right, you can hear Colombo and Katie every day at 2 o'clock. We'll be back tomorrow, of course, at 2 o'clock. In the meantime, as I mentioned, make sure you are subscribed to our podcast so you never miss anything that happens here on the show. Whatever your favorite podcast platform is, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, we put the show out shortly after we get off the air, out as a podcast every day. So make sure you are subscribed, and also subscribe to the Colombo and Katie YouTube channel. All right, the Tim Jones and Chris Arp show coming in next. They'll take you through the rest of this beautiful Monday afternoon. Don't go anywhere, and thank you so much for listening to us and supporting us here at 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Like us on Facebook at News Talk STL.
The Democrat Party is going to have to go back toward the center.
News, analysis, and opinion.
I've never called a talk show before, but this just irked me.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. This is Larry Connor's commentary on News Talk STL.
Here's another twist in the Donald Trump case as filed by D.A. Bragg in Manhattan. Judge Juan Merchan might be in violation of Section 100.5 of the New York Code of Judicial Conduct. Sitting judges cannot directly or indirectly engage in any political activity. The New York State Advisory Committee on Judicial Ethics, in its handbook, states a sitting judge may not make political contributions at any time. He made 3 donations to Democrats in 2020, as documented by the Federal Election Commission. Now, they're not a lot of money. $10 to Biden. 15. I'll move it to 15. 15 to Biden. And $10 to Progressive Turnout Project. And another $10 to an organization called Stop Republicans. But any amount is a violation. He did 3 of them. Oh, and his daughter. His daughter is running as a president and partner of Authentic Campaigns, a firm that runs digital campaigns for Democrats and worked on the Biden-Harris presidential campaign. As Donald Trump has said, this judge and his family are well-known Trump haters.
For more, listen to the Larry Connors USA Daily Report, tonight at 6 on News Talk STL.
It's hard to find a car you like, but here's an easier way. AckermanToyota.com. In a flash, you're going to see new and pre-owned. You can quickly select which model you want, price, colors, options, get details on financing, lifetime oil changes, lifetime engine warranty. Just click AckermanToyota.com. AckermanToyota.com. Ackerman Toyota at Hampton, just north of Interstate 44. Ackerman Toyota for life. So put this on your calendar, May the 1st. Napoli C will open on the streets of St. Charles. right next door to Napoli 3. Napoli Sea will have the finest seafood, lobster, crab, caviar. May 1st, Napoli Sea opens on the streets of St. Charles, right next door to Napoli 3, which is also open for lunch and on Sundays. You can find me at Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Town and Country, streets of St. Charles, and then May 1st, Napoli Sea.
Oh, Adam, you are so romantic. And I love the kitchen you found with all these great crumbs.
Yeah, baby, only the finest crumbs in the kitchen for my favorite aunt. Oh no, it's the pest control company again with those green wheels. They always kill the mood.
This is Derek, the owner of All Solutions Pest Control. Give us a call today at 636-486-7888. We'd love to help you out. Learn more about our special $67 offer. You can visit us online at allsolutionspestcontrol.com.
If a pest-free home is your goal, call All Solutions Pest Control.
There is a great story about how John Beal Roofing got started. I encourage you to read it at their website, johnbealroofing.com. That 1947 story leads to 3 generations of the Beal family repairing, replacing roofs on homes and businesses. Read the story at johnbealroofing.com. And when you need roofing help, support my sponsor, John Beal. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF, 1-800-NEW-ROOF.
Fox News commentary.
Kamala Harris won't do her job as czar of all things, but when she saw the chance to jump on the race card, she jumped on the plane and came to Nashville. I'm Tommy Lahren. More next.
Hi, I'm Martha Stewart. Every year, more than 4 million pets enter shelters here in the United States. My friends at American Humane have been helping animals since 1877. The goal is to ensure that pets have a safe shelter, especially during natural disasters. Adopting a shelter